So last week we learned about the heart.
Double pump.
And now we're going to be learning about the lungs. You see,
We are your lungs. We love to keep your body going.
the lungs are something you use every single day. And we are going to be working this today to make our own model of the lungs. So who's ready to make a model? Now this is my first model, my first failure of the lungs. But before we start, let's start by talking about the parts of the lungs. You see, there are different parts of your lungs, or the way that your air gets into your body. It starts by going in your nose like this. Hey guys, check out the size of this booger. Oops. And then it goes down into your larynx. Now, when I look at my larynx actually contains my vocal cords. And that is where it allows me to talk like I do and be super annoying like I am. Oops. But at the same time, that air is going down through my trachea and then into my bronchial tubes. Now, when I look at this model or this picture here, they call them bronchi, and they split off into two separate directions. One goes to the left lung, and the other goes to the right lung. You see, your left lung is slightly smaller than your right lung. I wonder why that is. It's pretty simple. Actually, your left lung is on the same side as your heart. And we all know that from last week, our heart is pumping blood into our lung.
Double pump.
To receive one thing, and that is oxygen. But it's also there to dump off another thing, and that is carbon dioxide. And so when it's dumping off the carbon dioxide and receiving the oxygen, it is creating more space in here. Therefore, your left lung is a bit smaller than your right lung. Now, when we talk about the blood and the oxygen getting and how that goes about those things, we're going to start by talking about one thing called hemoglobin. Let's not get that confused with the hemoglobin.
Hello, boys. Riddle me Blue Jay and riddle me Robin. You've done a silly thing summoning the hemoglobin.
Now, the hemoglobin is actually in your blood, and what that does is it actually collects the oxygen and disposes of the carbon dioxide as it goes into your lungs.
So as oxygen crosses over to the capillaries, the hemoglobin grabs it up, while the carbon dioxide is unloaded into the lungs. The oxygen-rich hemoglobin is then transported throughout the body via the bloodstream.
You see, as you breathe in, there's this muscle down here, right in about this area, and it is actually contracting and relaxing and contracting and relaxing. When I breathe in, try that real quick. When I breathe in, it allows me to contract my diaphragm, and my diaphragm actually pushes down. And when my diaphragm pushes down, it is actually making more space in my lungs. Today I want you to try a little experiment with me. It's pretty simple and anyone at home could do it. All I want you to do is I want you to take in a deep breath and hold it for 10 seconds. Now, when you were holding your breath, did you feel a tightness in your chest? Or almost like there was something inside of your body that wanted to push that air out? Well, that could be explained pretty simply. It can be explained by the fact that your nervous system and your respiratory system are working together. When you breathe in, your brain is sending a signal to your body to take in that oxygen. It's sending a signal to your diaphragm to expand and fill the lungs with oxygen. Now, what's also happening is your heart is pumping blood full of carbon dioxide and releasing it and taking in that oxygen. It's happening really quickly. But as it's happening, what you need to realize is happening is when you do that, your lungs are filling up with carbon dioxide. Now, when that happens, your brain is set on alert. It is screaming at you to let that air out. And so part of your brain naturally is telling your diaphragm to push up and push that air out. And that's why you feel that tightness in your chest. You know, you can fight it for so long, but after a while, you're holding that carbon dioxide for so long that you can't hold it anymore. And that's when you breathe out and you kind of do one of these. You see, that is your body's reaction. That is your nervous system working together with your respiratory system and your cardiovascular system. All of it is connected. All of it is working together. Pretty cool. So who's ready to make a model? I am. So let's go ahead and get started with our model today. I've already previewed with you the supplies you'll need. If you can't make it and you don't have the supplies, stick around for after this model, and I'm going to show you another model that doesn't require as much. So check it out. Now, this was my first model, and actually my first model is going to be worse, I believe, than this second model. I learned from some mistakes. Number one, you'll notice that it's actually kind of like a triangle on the bottom. Well, it's supposed to be a circle, but because the sides of the Diet Dr. Pepper 2-liter bottle were so flimsy, they kind of caved in, which required me to use a little more tape than I wanted. This model is actually going to be done with something a little more sturdy and a little bit smaller than the model you see right here. So let's get started with the materials you'll need for today's model of the respiratory system. First thing you'll need some straws, preferably straws that are bendy. Now, these straws are pretty flexible right here. I actually am recycling these straws. These are the straws I use for coffee every single morning, and I drink out of them. They're used straws, and don't worry, I didn't wash them. So I'm kidding, I washed them. But they are washed, and I'm going to be using a couple of straws here. A total number of straws that you'll need is you'll probably need 2 to 3 straws. I'm going to be using just 2 for my model. Another thing I'll need is I need some tape. Now, I've got some duct tape, not D-U-C, but D-U-C-T duct tape like we use in air ducts. I actually had some left over in my garage from a project I had done. And so this is actually some leftover duct tape. You don't need duct tape. You could use regular tape. You could use the tape you wrap presents with. You can use some masking tape. But tape will, pretty much any tape will do. I'm using duct tape. I got a couple of strips of that. And then what I also have is a pair of scissors. One of the other things that I have here is I have a utility knife that I'm going to use to help start to cut. If you don't have a utility knife, you can use scissors. Just be careful. I'm also going to be using a drill today because this power drill is going to allow me to drill a hole in the top of my cap. I've also brought along a hot glue gun. And then the last thing that I have, and it is around here, right here, is a soda bottle with a lid. Now, I'm going to end up cutting this soda bottle with this lid when I go ahead and make this. So check out this video on how to go ahead and make your own version of a model of the respiratory system. So the first thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and cut open my pop bottle. You see, what I want to do is I want to cut off just the top half so that I'm literally splitting the bottle into 2 parts. So let's go ahead and cut that out. The next part I want to create is I want to represent my trachea going down into my bronchi. So I really need 2 bronchi to kind of split off. What I'm going to use for this is I'm going to use the top of this straw as my trachea. And then what I'm going to also use down here is this is going to be one of my bronchi that goes into the other. So what I need to do is I need to take this, and I kind of need to cut a slit along this side, but I don't want to cut all the way through. I just want to cut a slit so that way I can insert another straw like so into here to create 2 bronchi. Check it out. So now I've got my trachea and my bronchi ready. I've let that hot glue dry. What I want to do is I want to test to make sure that I don't have any gaps here with my hot glue. You can also use tape. It may not create as airtight of a seal, but it'll still do the job. Let me check out to see if this has created what I need it to do. So it's still not quite airtight. So I'm going to take a minute just to kind of seal this back a little bit more to make sure that I don't have any gaps in it. It's okay to be kind of messy here. Really, my hot glue is kind of what I'm using to seal off my bronchi. Now that I've got my trachea and my bronchi sealed and everything's coming out smoothly, I'm ready to go ahead and insert my lungs or attach my lungs. Now, for my lungs, depending on the size of the bottle I'm going to be using, I want to be aware of that. I've got these larger party balloons that you would use maybe at a birthday, but I've also got these smaller water balloons that I would use on a summer day, throwing them at kids down the street. No, I would never do that. But anyways, I'm going to attach these balloons on here just like that to create 2 sets of lungs. So that way when I blow into here, I'm able to actually get the lungs to expand. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here in this next part. So now that I've got my lungs ready and my trachea and my bronchi all attached, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get them inside my frame, which is actually my soda bottle, the top of it. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to attach a diaphragm, which I'm going to use as a balloon. I'm going to cut the top of this balloon off. Now what's very important is when I cut the top of this balloon off, I don't cut it all the way off. I just cut off the top right about where my thumbs are. I'm also going to tie the bottom to create an airtight seal, so that way when I pull down, hopefully my lungs expand to bring in air, and then when I push up, they contract to release carbon dioxide out. So that's going to be my model here. Also, I'm excited because I get to use my drill. here's my model today that I made with you guys and showed you. Now with this, I've got my balloon down here representing my diaphragm. You see, as it expands in, it's going to cause the lungs to expand, or as it presses down, actually. Check it out. And when I push in, the lungs collapse, sending air out. If you listen carefully. And when I'm feeling on the sides, I can actually feel the chest cavity expanding with air. You see, this is my model that I made. Now, I know if you don't have all these materials readily available, you can sub out a lot of things. You will need balloons in order to do this, though. If you don't have balloons, you can use plastic bags, and I'll show you here in just a moment how to do that. But this is really a solid model that you can use to help you better understand how the respiratory system works. The different pieces you have are the trachea, down into the bronchi, into the lungs, left and right. And then I've got down here my diaphragm that when it pushes down, it expands the chest cavity. And when it pushes up, it sends my air back out of my body. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I would not recommend necessarily using this duct tape. It's a little harder to manage, but you can use pretty much any tape that you want. Feel free to mess up too. It's okay. But if you want to show me the model that you made or attempted to make, that's what I'm looking for in day 3. Today, I just want to know what the different parts of this represent. So just stick around for just one more moment. I'll show you one more model that's a little bit easier to make if you don't have the materials present for this model. So here I've created another model, not nearly as nice as my other one that I created here just a moment ago in the video. But if you don't have these materials readily available, what you can use is a couple of straws that I taped together. I took those straws and I put them in the ends of a plastic bag and sealed it as tight as I could. I actually put some hot glue in there, if you notice very carefully. And what I can do is I can actually represent a model of the lungs. You see, I'm going to breathe in through the trachea, and my lungs are going to expand. Now they're expanded, and my hand is going to act as the diaphragm to push the air out. Now I can do this with both hands to create that diaphragm and pushing that air out. You see, this is another model that you can create. I really want you just to create a model of your own choosing, but I want you to make it out of materials. You can copy and do exactly the same as I did in my model. You can also go online and find different models that might be easier to make with the materials you have readily available. The purpose of this is to do one of two things. Either one, I want you to make the model and videotape yourself using it. Now, you don't have to put your face in it. You might have to put your mouth area in it, especially if you're going to be blowing into it. And I might see your hands, might be a couple hand models. But really what you're doing is you're creating a model, because that's what good science does. Is good science creates accurate models that help us to better understand a system or some type of functioning thing, whether it's in nature or even in our own bodies. That is part of the model making process. So for day 3, I want you to make a model. If you have any questions, you can hop on and check it out. Check out my Google Meet at 2 o'clock every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I will hopefully answer some questions for you. But that is your job for day 3. You could do either of these 2 models that I've shown or make your own. Enjoy and have some fun, and don't get hurt, and just do something cool.